Welcome to the Garden Gamble, where we're planting hope, taking chances, and growing memories for every season. I'm Ricki Clausen, owner of Clausen's Greenhouse in northern Minnesota. This podcast is for anyone who's ever stood in the garden, greenhouse, or backyard wondering if they're doing it right. Here we talk real-life gardening, the wins, the mistakes, and everything we learn along the way. Whether you're new to plants or have dirt permanently under your nails, you're in the right place. Let's take the gamble and grow together. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's another episode of the Garden Gamble podcast. I'm Ricki Clausen, owner here at Clausen's Greenhouse in northern Minnesota. And we just turned the page to a new month. We are in August now. I feel like everything is full production mode. Gardening is in full swing. We are starting to reap the benefits of all the work that we've put in the early summer, now here in August. And I feel like this is just a turning point here in the gardening season where, like I said, all this work that we've done is really starting to pay off. So I kind of wanted to use today's episode as kind of a checklist to do in like that midsummer here. That's what we're talking about today, is a midsummer gardening to-do list. So we're just going to go through a short list of things to consider here in the midsummer. A few things that I'm working on here now in our garden and flower farm. So yeah, I'm very excited for today's episode. Here at our place, we just got through a stretch of really hot weather. And the first thing on the to-do list here for today's episode is talking a little bit about trimming leggy plants. And especially after a hot spell like we just had, you might be seeing that some of your annuals might have stretched a bit. They're looking a little bit leggy. Maybe they got a little too dry in this hot weather and they're just not looking their best. So the first thing on the list is to trim those leggy plants. And depending on the plants that you have in your garden, will kind of vary a little bit about how to trim that. But let's take hanging baskets here, for example. If you have a petunia hanging basket that is just really starting to stretch, it's not in that nice round ball that we like to see, and it's really stretching in the heat of the summer here, go ahead and give that a really nice haircut. There are a number of different plants that really appreciate that haircut that you can give them in the midsummer, and it might feel wrong right away to trim off all of those blooms, but trust me, in a week or two, it's gonna really push lots of new growth, and it will definitely be worth it in the end. Along those same lines, you can be trimming or deadheading some perennials that are done blooming for the year, and deadheading just a few other plants to really push new growth. There are a few perennials even that if you deadhead those blooms, they might do another flush into the fall after a while. So sometimes taking that extra time now is definitely going to be worth it later on. The next thing that you can do on your midsummer garden to-do list is to make notes, and make notes of what's going well, what isn't, and start troubleshooting some of those problems now. Because if you make note of things that are happening here in the midsummer, sometimes we can fix them quickly, and sometimes there are things that we need to fix in the fall after the gardening season, or even in the spring. So make sure you're taking good notes. I make tons of notes just on my phone, like in my notes app. And that's just where I keep a lot of little things that I think of when I'm out in the garden and in the flower farm. That's where I'm jotting a few notes down. So yeah, take notes on what's going well, what isn't. Do you have any pest problems right now? Is a plant not thriving the way you thought it would? Why is it not thriving the way you thought it would? And part of that could be sun exposure. So that's the next thing on the list here, is to check sun exposure. We kind of touched on this in our early episodes here on the Garden Gamble podcast, talking about sun exposure and what that means. And it does change throughout the season. So now is an excellent time to check that sun exposure. Maybe you have a plant in too much sun and it's just not doing very well, or the opposite, maybe it's in too shady of a spot that you thought it would eventually get more sun. There's a ton of different factors there on why a plant might be struggling or not thriving the way you thought it would. But yeah, checking that sun exposure, now is a great time to do that. So yes, make some notes on just little things that you've been thinking about when you've been out in your garden. The next thing on the list is to start buying some of those fall harvest materials. I know that for me, when I was doing a lot more canning than I am doing now, finding jars and lids and canning supplies later into the fall can be very tricky and very difficult because everyone is going to buy them at that time. So if you think of it, next time you're at the store or next time that you are out shopping, pick up a few more jars, a few more lids, and really start stocking up on some of those harvesting materials. And you will very much thank yourself later for that when you see that the shelves are empty, because everyone wants to get their hands on those. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. I know some people are probably in the heart of canning already with like pickles and beans and all sorts of things. So it's only going to get busier as like the tomatoes start to ripen, the peppers start really taking off in the heat here. So yeah, start buying up some of those harvesting supplies and canning supplies now. The next thing on the list is seed saving. If you are into saving seeds from year to year, now is a great time to start doing that and start keeping an eye out for things that are ready and at a good stage for that. Like in the flower farm, or if you're growing some of your own flowers, you can start taking some of those seeds like the zinnias and a few other things that are great for seed saving. You can start doing some of that now as well while everything is very abundant. I also think it's a good time to start experimenting with new things. Now that you have some produce coming out, maybe you can try some new recipes that you haven't tried before, or maybe you want to try something new with your canning, or if you're growing cut flowers like I do, now is an excellent time to try out some new bouquet combinations while everything is really in full flush and in full swing, and you're getting such an abundant amount out of your garden, and it's hopefully only going to continue to get better here in August and throughout the remainder of the season. So this is a great time to do some of that experimenting as well. So I'm looking forward to experimenting with a few new blooms that we have in our flower farm here coming up too. I've got a few fun ones that are just about to come into bloom, so I'm very much looking forward to that. A few things too, like my kids have their own little garden just in pots, like just on our porch for this year. So kind of small, but we've got a few herbs and a few tomatoes, and I'm really looking forward to trying a few things out with them too, and kind of letting them take over in small ways as much as they can with different recipes that we want to try together as a family. A few things that I'm working on right now myself, and part of my midsummer to-do list, is right now I'm putting on some of the final sprays of liquid fence, which is a deer and rabbit repellent. I spray that on a few of the pots and containers around the yard that aren't fenced off. We just finished fencing a huge section of our property to try to keep the deer out of like our pumpkins for the pumpkin patch, some of our perennials behind the greenhouse. The flower farm is all fenced in there. We've got some sweet corn. So we're trying to keep some of the deer out, but there are a few pots like in front of the greenhouse, and then we have a few that kind of line the road leading up to the flower farm that aren't fenced in, that the deer love to get to if I'm not right on top of it with the spraying. We actually planted the ones over by the flower farm 3 times. So that was not very fun. So we finally got it figured out. They are looking great now that we got it figured out, and I'm on top of it with the spraying this time. So that is something that I am working on now because you have to spray them a few times throughout the season. So I've got one more layer of spray, and I might have to put one more on like in mid to late September if I want to, but I'm kind of getting to the end of that as well. Another thing that I am doing right now is, I kind of touched on this earlier in the episode about making notes, but I'm making notes of what flowers I want to grow more of next year, where I've said in the last few episodes as we were talking about cut flowers that I'm like, oh yes, the U-picks are going to be starting like really soon. I haven't scheduled any of the U-picks yet, which we are going to be scheduling here in the next week or so. But I've been using almost all of the stems in the flower farm right now, between other events like bouquet bars, weddings that we've been doing, and then just our regular subscription holders. So we have been like so busy in the flower farm where I've been using just about everything. Yeah, between those and some wholesale accounts that we have too, which is wonderful. But I am seeing that I might need to grow a few more flowers for next year. I wouldn't say a ton, but I like to do groupings enough where I can get bunches of 10 for wholesale accounts and whatnot. So there's a few varieties that I just don't have enough coming into bloom all at the same time to make solid bunches. So I'm making notes of a few of those that I need to plant more of for next year. So that's some of the notes that I'm taking now, kind of jotting down which varieties I really like to harvest, which ones are I don't really think are worth my time. So just those little things I'm making note of in our garden and flower farm right now. The other thing on my midsummer gardening to-do list, of course, is weeding. That's a never-ending project, but it is getting a little bit better now that some of the flowers are starting to kind of make their canopy and choke out some of those weeds. So it is getting a little easier, thankfully, but weeding is on the list. And then staking. Now that a lot of the flowers are really large, we are starting to stake a few things that need a little extra support. We're adding our corral system to a few of the other, like more branchy flowers. I'm gonna have to corral some of like the cosmos. We're gonna corral a few of the sunflowers. One row I have support netting on for the sunflowers. The other one doesn't because it was with some other flowers that didn't need it. So I'll probably corral some of those. And what I mean by that corral system is I just take twine and some T-posts and we kind of just make a big X around them just to give them a little bit of extra support. So yeah, weeding and staking a few things has been on my midsummer gardening to-do list. And the last thing here to kind of wrap up today's show on everyone's midsummer gardening to-do list is I hope that you are taking time to enjoy it. I know that when things are in full swing, that it's really hard to slow down and take the time to enjoy your garden. So next time that you're out there, maybe take a note just to take a deep breath. When I know you're going out there on a mission, usually to harvest something, do some weeding, but take a breath, take it all in, enjoy the fruits of your labor. And there's a reason why we all love to garden so much. And I hope that you can take a few minutes sometime this week to really enjoy that. And that's definitely going to be on my list as well, because yeah, every time I go out to the flower farm, I'm usually just on a mission to do what I need to do. And I don't know, I've got the string lights out there now that pop on in the evenings. So maybe I'm just going to take my lawn chair out there and sit down under the lights and watch the sunset and enjoy it. That's going to be my challenge for myself this upcoming week. So I hope that you are enjoying this gardening season. Of course, it always has its challenges. You've taken the gamble already. Hopefully you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the process as well. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Garden Gamble podcast, and hopefully that midsummer gardening to-do list, you can check a few of those off in your gardens this week. So thank you so much for tuning in. New episodes out every single Monday, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. If you enjoyed the episode and have been enjoying the podcast, please feel free to subscribe and send it to another gardener who you might think would enjoy this. So thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining me on The Garden Gamble. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with a fellow plant lover. Gardening isn't a gamble when you have the right guidance, and you don't have to figure it out alone. Until next time, take care.